We have two talks today. So Ayan, who's our new member, please welcome Ayan.
Hi, my name's Ion. If you forget, it's like cat ion or anion. So for any of the physics or math people, you might remember it that way. I'm gonna try not to embarrass myself doing this. I am not, discretions. I am not like an astronomer, astrophotographer. I'm like barely a regular photographer of like birds. But I really like astronomy. I've liked it since I watched Cosmos, A Space-Time Odyssey from Neil deGrasse Tyson when I was in, I think, grade 8. And ever since then, I've really liked astronomy. Found this astronomical society when I moved to Oakville. Very much liked everything that everyone had to offer. And I saw that there were equipment loans. So after I became a member, I think within the first couple of days, I reached out to Joe Van and Duel, who I think is in the back over there. Yeah, sorry, I don't have my glasses, so everyone's faces kind of look like bokeh circles to me, which is fine. He had an full astronomy setup that was very beginner friendly, that he wanted to loan out to anyone, so I decided to take it on. And so that's what I played with. So this is a list of everything that was in the box. So we had an Svbony SV 503 80 millimeter refractor telescope. Don't worry, I don't really know what any of those words mean either because I just got into this, but it's a really cool telescope. I think it has a really wide crop factor, so it's excellent for looking at nebulae and galaxies, like really big, deep space objects, which is what I used it for. Also comes with a star tracker, which I learned was something that could match the rotation of the Earth. So while you're taking photographs of something in deep space, it lets you fixate on that point and match the Earth's rotation. So you always have it in frame. But this isn't always perfect. So what he also included was a 120 millimeter guide camera because the mount is only so perfect as its gears and mechanical engineers can make it, but there's always a bit of margin of error. So the guide camera helps it to fixate on things called guide stars, where they can constantly send feedback back to the mount to make sure that the object that you have in focus stays in focus for the duration of your time focusing on it. The camera that was used was the ZWO 585 not monochrome color camera. This is a really great camera to use, 8.29 megapixels. It was really cool for me to use images that it pumped out and then sort of play around with them in Photoshop and Lightroom. So I was able to derive a lot of really cool colors. And then he included a bunch of other stuff like a battery pack and things of that nature. So this was one of the first things that I captured, the Eastern Veil Nebula. I'm going to kind of go through all the pictures that I took a little bit quicker, just so you guys can see the variety.
Can somebody get the light? Oh, thank you. Yeah, because we want to see the pictures.
Another bit of discretion. This wasn't like a scientific experiment, so not all the conditions were ideal or similar across all the photos that were taken. Because I had this for a couple of months, the moon phases changed every time that I took out the telescope setup to take photos. And because the moon phases change, you have something that is like moon's light pollution. So on a full moon, you have a lot of extra light pollution, which can sort of take out a lot of the nice colors in deep space objects. And then in a new moon, when there's no light pollution, it's a great time for viewing because then you can absorb a lot more of those colors. I also played around with things like exposure time, so how long the camera sensor was open for collecting data, how long the total exposure was. So I think this one was about an hour. Some of the later ones are like 2-3 hours, and then some of them were only maybe like 10-20 minutes because that's all the time that I had. So that was the Eastern Veil. This is the North American Nebula. This one was a bit wider. I thought this one was also a bit cleaner. I took multiple crops of this. So essentially what I did was I aimed it at the North American Nebula in one quadrant, and then after I took a little bit of data, I shifted it over and then took another quadrant of the North American Nebula, and I just did that 2 more times, and then I got like this picture right here. So it's a bit more expansive. So that was also something that I played around with. And then the Pac-Man Nebula, this one was also really cool. I got to play around with this in Lightroom, just playing around with the different reds, the hues. Excellent for also learning color grading as well. Orion Nebula, this one was a little harsher to get out just because the moon's light pollution that I had. Also, I couldn't really leave my backyard for a lot of these, which isn't necessarily bad because Joe was nice enough to include a light pollution filter, but the light pollution filter is only so perfect because you ideally want clear, dark skies. Oh, and as we get into winter, we don't really have clear skies, not that much anymore. It feels like every night that I go out, it's just covered in a blanket of either snow on the ground or clouds in the sky. So not the greatest. But a lot of these were taken in October. Andromeda Galaxy, this one I think was 2 or 3 hours. And this one was one that was a lot of fun to play with because I learned something called stacking. So stacking is where you take a bunch of different exposures and photos, and through software, you pretty much stack them on top of each other. So it lets you find little bits of detail that weren't rendered in each individual photo, but when you combine them, you can see detail. Like you can see stars that you might not have noticed in just one 2-minute exposure, but you notice them in like a 3-hour photo. That was really good. This one was one of the first ones that I did. And then after I learned stacking, I was able to also bring out some other detail by playing around with different channels. I won't bore everyone with it. I'm not sure I fully understand it myself, but it was really interesting to learn about that as well. The Splinter Galaxy, this one wasn't a very long exposure, and it's a very difficult target as well, but I thought that one was cool. Jupiter, this wasn't with the telescope that Joe provided. This was a telescope that I got from my uncle. Not quite sure what the difference is, but he told me that this one was much better for planets. So I tried it with planets and with Jupiter, and it worked out really well. So I was really happy with that one.
Is that one photo or so?
This one I think it's a couple. I think it's a couple.
Do you know what the telescope was, like how big it was?
I think it's like in something 11, a Celestron 11.
C11.
Yeah, I think something like that.
That looks like a seal.
Yeah, it's like really, really big.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough to carry. It's child size. Okay, and then this was Comet Lemon. I've seen much better photos online and on National Geographic, but I was just happy to take this one because this was my first time ever trying astrophotography and especially a comet, which was really cool to see. This one I didn't use Joe's camera for. I used the rest of his setup, so I used his star tracker. I actually took my Sony a7 IV mirrorless camera with my 200 to 600 millimeter lens, and I just attached it onto the same mount, which you can do, which is really cool. So if you already have your own camera setup, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, or maybe you want to just keep that going, investing in a star tracker is kind of versatile because you can use it for a couple different things. You could use it for like Milky Way shots as well and time lapses, which I don't have, but I used it for Lemon. This one I think is 30 minutes worth of data, and I did this when I was in Guelph because using my Sony camera, I didn't have the light pollution filter on it, so I actually did have to go to an area where there wasn't much light pollution. So what I did was I went an hour past KW and I was looking around. It's kind of just farmland and I didn't really see a place to park my car, but then I found this old abandoned church when I was just driving by, so I just parked myself next to the church.
Your images?
Joe included a ZW ASI Air, I think it's called. So that's the software that auto stacks images. And so it's like, I think it's like a Raspberry Pi, where it just pretty much takes all the images that the camera's collecting and it kind of auto stacks them for you. So you have a nice clean image. To process those ones, I just use Lightroom, Photoshop, just played around with those. For the time that I stacked on my own, I used Sequator, I think, to do the stacking, and then I just played around with something called Serial. That one's like the free one. I think the paid one's PixInsight, but I just kind of watched tutorials on those. I didn't include all of the really, really bad photos. Like there was a I think I took photos of the beehive cluster that just did not work at all. I think it was either too windy. A bunch of photos I was just out of focus on. Focus is like something that's I find so difficult to execute properly. But yeah, those were like the good ones. Thank you.
Okay, so let's see how fast I can speak. Okay, so introduction to AI is my topic for today. AI has been, or artificial intelligence has been in the news quite a bit. A few members actually said to me, why don't you take, a stab at this? And so this is really a basic one. So a lot of you probably already know way more than what I'm going to present, but this is really a beginner's 101, 001, introduction. I will dive a little bit in the AI and astronomy, some use cases that are happening in the last year. So that's really my talk. I just want to remind everybody that AI is not sentient yet. It's a tool to help us humans. And my focus is on productivity and efficiency, typically in organizations. So that's kind of where I focus in on. And just a disclosure here, I started a company earlier this year. It's called Lean Astro for us astronomers. And Lean is because Lean Six Sigma, I come from that world. And the focus of this company is really responsible applied AI with process and AI from an efficiency standpoint. It's really to focus on customer service and streamlining processes. Yada, yada, yada. Our services include education, consulting, and tailored AI solutions. Even though we've been in business for less than a year, we actually have 3 highlights. We actually did the AI customer chatbot for Telescopes Canada. If we have time, I can show that to you. If the tour time runs out, go take a look at it. Everybody should know Telescopes Canada. That's our online retailer, and they actually supply the Svbony hats a while back. There's AI governance consulting that we're doing for one of Canada's largest banks. And we're partnering with McMaster University on a digital health app specifically on women's health. So I'm working with a professor and his students. And we're partnered with all of those different organizations that are up there, including Communitech and Waterloo, Innovation Factory, that is again out in Hamilton. So we have a lot of partnerships and a lot of great support. I will stop talking about my company and we'll go straight into the introduction. Okay, so we're going to get into the basics of AI. We'll talk a little bit about trends. We'll talk about responsible AI. We'll talk about examples of AI applications across industries. This is important to understand because AI is touching our lives on a daily basis, whether you realize this or not, or whether you want it to or not. It is touching us. It's like the internet. And of course, we'll get into AI and astronomy. And I have a couple of demos I want to show you as well. So let's get into it. So AI is not new. It's been around since the 50s, and there's been several advancements that happened in the 80s. Really, AI became democratized or became popular with ChatGPT in 2022. And when I talk about democratization, I mean access and availability of those tools. Generative AI really changed the landscape of what we do. Every student, every person that is now touching a computer, you see Gemini on Google, you see all sorts of AI kind of coming up, and that's generative AI. What's generative AI? That's at the bottom of the pie there. There's multiple pies. Generative AI is exactly that. It generates an image, generates language. So if you want to write an email, you'd likely use a generative AI like a ChatGPT to do your email, that kind of thing. Midjourney generates pictures. Microsoft Copilot is another popular one. So if you have Office, you likely have Copilot, but you kind of have to usually shut it off if you don't want to use it. Apple devices have AI in them as well. Now, what we look at is, let's kind of go up all the way to the top. What is AI? AI is really about mimicking human behavior. Back in the 50s, that's what they said. They said, let's build something that is basically going to be as intelligent as a human being. We're not there yet. However, machine learning so basically at the end of the day, AI is a statistical tool. At the core, at the atom level, it's got log regression inside it. So that's the basis of statistical analysis, is the basis of AI. I was very surprised when I actually went through my studies in the last year or so. I was quite surprised how much statistics there is. And that's why it becomes a predictive tool. So think about your weather. Think about also, that's kind of the machine learning. So if you're predicting some weather patterns, chances are there's an algorithm running to help predict, hey, this is going to be, cloudy, rainy, whatever. Deep learning is where astronomy and health and defense usually use that space. So deep learning is really the neural networks in the brain. So it basically is mimicking the brain neural networks. And so there's things called CNNs, for example. We'll see this later, but that's basically image recognition, image pattern recognition is an example of deep learning. Pharmaceuticals are actually using deep learning. Optometry is a big one. So I met an optometrist when I was doing one of my Harvard Medical School courses in AI. I met an optometrist and she was using AI. She lived out in Australia to detect patterns of who will get a cataract based on historical data from patients. And so based on that, there's a lot of prediction. I went to a digital health conference earlier this year. They were talking about heart and that someone's going to get a heart attack, even though the person shows completely healthy signs. Those are examples, good examples of AI. Deepfake is not one of them, right? So because we're responsible AI, we have to kind of talk about that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So those are basically the big buckets, and there's a lot of complexity, and AI is such a massive topic, we could be talking for a year, but we'll get to the next slide now. So I also want to kind of bring it home in terms of our daily lives. So when we talk about AI, who watches your Amazon or Netflix? Anybody has subscriptions to any of them? Yeah, a lot of us do, right? Or you actually go buy Prime Days, you buy Amazon, products. AI is in them. What do I mean by that? So the system recommends, say, oh, you watched this, so you might like this movie, or you purchased this, so you might like this. That's an AI behind the scenes, and it's called a recommender AI. That's yet another type of AI. So that's one example. Customer service, there's chatbots. So you go into a chatbot, a traditional will be, you put in a question, it will give an answer. Give a question, gives an answer. If you give a question slightly differently, you will just get, I don't understand this. So then AI is taking over that space, and we'll see an example of that as well. So that's kind of your, a couple of examples in your daily lives. But then you've got also the physical side of it. So wearables, who has smartwatches here? A lot of us, right? Who have smartphones. They all have AI in them. So the wearables is a big one. And then if you think about from a medical standpoint, also they're introducing the AI again to detect patterns of walking, from a stability perspective, et cetera. So there's very good uses of that space. Robotics in car manufacturing, again, could have AI, not generative AI, it could be machine learning, it could be deep learning, it could be all sorts of different types of AI. So those are some examples. Then we get into AI assistants and agents. So this is a really hot topic right now around AI agents or agentic AI. So we start off kind of in the left, which is your conventional. What is it? So an assistant is again about, okay, there is a office space, maybe it's your doctor's office or whatever, dentist's office, and they're doing some repetitive tasks. They're taking a call, they're putting the information into the system. That is repetitive customer over customer over customer. Or there's an email, and I'll give you an example of this organization. Every month you get an email from me, oh, there's a potpourri happening. That's a repetitive process that actually you can automate. You can automate it multiple ways. One of them, and I'll show you what I mean by that again at the end from a demo perspective. So you can either just automate because there's a lot of automation technology tools, or you can use AI to automate. So there's a couple of ways to do it. Then there's the very fine, like the kind of the goal, like people are going towards this, it's called autonomous AI. The AI just does everything, which is a little bit dangerous because we always recommend having a human in the loop or a human in. Imagine if the AI just sent you the email and I haven't seen the email, and then you get some stuff. And then you go, and then, it's like, what happened, right? It doesn't look good for the club if the AI just sends you the email without me reading it. First, I'm making sure the AI, has sent it correctly or is the language correct. Again, we'll get into some of that as well. So autonomous AIs, you have to be very careful with. You just have to have what we call as the human in the loop. So you'll hear these terms in the industry, human in the loop, which is really a human oversight. Future trends. So we talked about customer care, et cetera. The learning and education is, I'm going to kind of just go down the bullet here. So learning and education, there's a lot of people now who are using AI to put their learning and education materials together. which, could be bad, could not be so good. I'm not so sure. I kind of stand that you still need a professor at the end of the day to kind of help you teach and learn from their experiences. AI agents for automating workflows, we talked about. Responsible AI. So what's responsible AI? So responsible AI comes in many, many fashions. One is around environment and the impact these data centers have, these massive data centers have on our water supply on the planet. And we're all amateur astronomers. We know how precious our planet is to us. So, when you have these data centers, they run hot and they take up a lot of water. And that's why you see in the news talk about the data centers, billions being spent. But what is going to happen to the planet Earth in 50 years? And somebody had told me this, and I don't know how far this is true or not. They generated an image, and apparently the carbon footprint of that one image was 60 round trip flights from Toronto to Paris. That is what one image cost, 60 round trips to Paris from Toronto. So before you use AI, think about why you want it and what purpose is it serving and how is it impacting planet Earth. So that's something that we have to kind of keep in mind. Data privacy is another big one. So data privacy but especially when you get into healthcare. So healthcare perspective again, or even just personal day-to-day, you want to please go ahead and use ChatGPT, but you want to be a little bit careful about, here's my birth date and here's my house address. And, you would be careful regardless. You just take those precautions as you kind of use ChatGPT, et cetera. Just be mindful as you're using it. There are ways you can turn off in the background. So if you use ChatGPT, you can go into settings, you can turn off some of the training and you can turn on some of the privacy. If ever you're using it, make sure you're kind of just double checking that, you're using it safely. This is really for people who are in this industry. This is the trend. So if you're in one of the industries up there, the Gartner is a very reputable source, but they talk about marketing, et cetera, kind of getting impacted by AI in terms of their jobs. From a customer preference perspective, it all depends on who you're serving and who you are, whether you want to interact with the AI or not. I'm not going to spend time on this one. I just wanted you to know those are some of the considerations, kind of when it goes into, especially if you're young and you're trying to start out in a field, you may want to just think about, I think there's a saying, a lot of people say this, AI will not replace you, but if you don't know AI, then somebody who knows AI will replace you. So that's something that, people talk about. Again, there's a ton of models. I just basically threw a bunch of them on the slide over here. I'll just talk about the different types. There's a foundational model. A foundational model is like OpenAI or ChatGPT is more commonly known. They are the foundation. So they are the ones and then you build on top of it. What else is taking off right now is no code, low code. No code, low code is something that is actually replacing software engineers, potentially. So again, that's some of the things. It's democratizing the way you do technology builds. So that's one area. And then there's Gemini we talked about, and there's a few other things, and I can certainly talk about this after the meeting if anybody's interested, but there's a ton of different things that have emerged in the last 3 years. There's a lot of applications. The idea of these next two slides is to kind of show where everything is impacting us. But from our daily purposes, drafting an email is important. I'll be fully honest, before I send out any emails, I do actually now go to ChatGPT for a couple of reasons. I have a lot on my plate. So, I put the bullet points in and it drafts the email for me when I send it to you or anybody else, and also helps with my English writing too. It actually does some proofreading for me. So, I use it as an assistant. I don't use it as a replacement. I'm planning a trip. I actually am going to try something out. The next trip I plan, I'm going to have, the AI do some work for me. Actually, I said, okay, I want to travel Scandinavia next year, potentially. We're looking at that, the Scandinavian countries. So it actually gave me a full itinerary. Where to go, take a boat, take a road, take a train, et cetera. It gave a full itinerary about go from Helsinki to this place to that place. It gave me the full thing. So recipes is another big one. But again, I don't tend to use it because I don't want to hurt planet Earth. So people are using it in those different ways. I'm just kind of giving some examples of how it can be used in our daily lives. And then we talked about the healthcare, financial services used for fraud detection. That's another one there. Okay, so the considerations, the risk and ethical considerations. So they talked about data privacy, hallucination. So this is what I was talking about, AI making up stuff. So the other day I was trying to build an agent, and we'll see an agent in a minute, to do my expenses. So when I have a lot of software subscriptions, monthly subscriptions, and I don't want to keep, tracking them manually. So I built an agent and I said, go in, pick out the number from the invoice. So I got, and the invoices are all different because depending on the company, you don't get the standard invoice, you get like different invoices. So the idea there is you go pick out and you go pick the number, pick the dollar amount, pick the date, pick the vendor, and put it in a spreadsheet. So I built the agent. So then I looked at what was coming out and was giving me things from 2020, 2016, 2015. I'm like, I was talking in business in 2016. I've been in business since 2025. And then I looked at it, the AI had made up stuff. It made up stuff and it put it into, I don't know what happened. It went and it put it into my expenses and I apparently incurred expenses that they were not real. The other example I had was my husband's colleague, I think, used AI to help write the year-end reviews for some employees. So they used AI, they put their points in, and the AI came in super glowing response on that employee and made up stuff. That's a hallucination. That's a hallucination. So you're watching for that, and and I think another example was it made up stuff for me. Like, I don't know, I was doing something, and then I actually asked it a question. I'm like, are you sure? And it came back and said, yes, I'm sure. I'm like, really? So this is called prompting, and the better you do prompting, there's a whole thing about prompt engineering. The better you give instructions, the better responses you get. So those are the things that you can avoid hallucinations on. Of course, on the industry, you're looking at regulatory. I do want to talk about bias, and fairness. So bias and fairness is all about. So AI is actually trained on data, historical data, right? And especially when it comes to certain industries, it can have data that is skewed. And we as astronomers know, like, especially when you're looking at images, et cetera, that if you have skewed images, like basically if you have too many light frames, not enough dark frames, you can get an inconsistent picture at the end of the day. That's the piece you're looking for, that you want to have balanced data when you're training your AI. Okay, let's get into astronomy. So there's a few here. Okay, I've got 2 more minutes on this use cases, so I'm going to move fast. So finding new exoplanets and reading their atmosphere. So Kepler data set. So deep learning module, a deep learning model, or CNNs, is actually being used with the Kepler data set to find new exoplanets, because that method is better than the traditional methods. So that's one use case, and feel free to take a picture because there's a source there. It's nature.com. This article was, and this is on the last year. So all these use cases in the last 12 months. Another use case is that Oxford University and Google got together and started to use the foundation model, or a large language model, which is Gemini in this particular case, and gave it 15 images to detect what real world cosmic examples might be happening in the world. And in this case, for example, a cosmic event could be exploding star, black hole, etc. And the AI was able to use only 15 images, detect the pattern, and actually with 90% accuracy say, yeah, this looks like something has happened in the universe. And so this, what benefits us as astronomers is you need less. It becomes, again, more accessible tools to do this kind of study. So this is, again, something that Oxford did with Google. From a stellar machine, so machine learning was used for stellar astronomy, and this was done from Cornell University. So image classification is a big field when it comes to AI and astronomy. There's a big field there, and there's different ones. So this was about, again, chemical composition of the star and how it behaves, etc. Anybody hear of Galaxy Zoo? Galaxy Zoo, Citizen Science, yeah. So anybody, I highly encourage you to go in there. I was there a couple of days ago, and they actually got GSWT pictures that you can volunteer to actually pattern recognize. So what they've done is, so that, this was established, I think, in 2007, and they get volunteers to classify the images at different stages. They built something called Zuba. Who here would like something named after them? Everybody, right? Let's be honest, even if you didn't raise your hand, you would like, hey, I discovered this, right? So what was happening was the volunteers were just getting a lot of simple, kind of repetitive stuff. So instead, the AI is taking the simple images and detecting, whether it's an elliptical galaxy, whether it's a spiral galaxy, et cetera. And then the astronomers are getting more complex. So there's a higher chance of something being named after an individual if you discover it. So just FYI, go onto the site. It's kind of interesting. And then I'm going to bring it right home. Our little C star. It has AI denoise in it, and this is again to reduce the noise and enhance the clarity of those pictures. So that's kind of how C star is using AI. Are we doing okay for time? Yeah, okay, we're gonna go straight into demos. We're right on time. I am going to just take a minute to kind of reposition. Who here has heard of vibe coding?
Okay.
Vibe coding. Anybody heard of that? Vibe coding. So yeah, some people have. Okay, great. So vibe coding is basically VIBE coding. And I really, really hope this works. Vibe coding is basically you use AI, give it plain language to develop your software. That's what this built. So I used AI to build this little form, and I'll show you how it works. Let me show you how it works, and then we'll spend a couple of minutes kind of going into it. So this is our center, and we know we have our potpourris, especially the council will appreciate this. We have our potpourris or riverwood. I'll just take the potpourri example. So they imagine, and those emails have to go out. I know how you have to spend time writing those emails. So what I said is, I have an email template. Why don't I make it easy for myself? I haven't actually sent one out yet, but the next time you see an email, it probably is AI sending it out for me. So this is how we're going to do this. So we're going to have a potpourri meeting. Next one is on January 16th. And by the way, the AI has built this form. I didn't do it. And then volunteer deadline, let's just say, I don't know, pick a date. Give me a date, folks. 9th? Sure, let's do that. Okay. Okay, UTM, because I don't think we're going to remember for the potpourri, right? And then we're going to put my name, we're going to put my email, and we're going to submit. And see that on the right? What's happened? There's an event that's been submitted. What I'm expecting is an email coming back. Okay, let's see if it worked. Here we are. There it comes. And there's my email. All I did was put the date, and it has a template in the background. So it did all of this for me. And you'll recognize these emails, right? And this has been produced by N8N. So this is basically an agent assistant at work. The agent itself is not AI. I built the form using vibe coding. So we'll get into that. So I'll just show you what I mean by all of those words. So this one here is a thing called Lovable. Do you want to quickly build something? Just shout out an idea. It doesn't matter what idea. Just shout it out. Anybody? Any volunteers?
20 trivias.
Okay. So build, what is that? Okay. So the idea here is you will prompt it, so build a form, right? To collect trivia responses, right? And so if you do that and you hit that, it will just go and it'll start doing its thing. So that's what it's doing. This is called vibe coding. And you'll see in the left, it's thinking and it'll kind of go. And at the end of that, you'll get the product you're kind of seeing. So this, I'm not going to go in because I know we're short of time, but there it goes. So it's building that and it'll just give you something at the end. So that's called vibe coding. And this is what we call as no code, low code. There's AI, there's a large language model or a foundational model behind this guy. So it's doing, and it's you can give colors, etc. So that's one example. Then let me show you, say it's going to keep doing its thing. You know ChatGPT already, so I'm not going to go into that too much. But I'm going to go into what an agent looks like. N8N is there's so many out there. This is just one example. But that email that you saw coming is basically 4 steps. So it gets the trigger, it basically formats the fields, it does the workflow configuration, and it sends the email. So I build this once and it saves me at least 2 hours a month because I did that. Obviously, the email will come to me. I'll review it before it comes to you, but that's going to be my process in 2026, saving me 2 hours a month. So there's that. But where does AI come in? I'll just show you an example of that. And this is the example I'm talking about with my company. So this is built for myself. I built it for myself. So this is, again, no code, low code, but you see this over here. It says basic LLM chain, OpenAI chat. That's the AI integration. That's when you hear the word AI agent, you basically have something like that in your flow. That becomes an AI agent. Otherwise, it's just workflow automation. So that's a couple of examples there. We saw the vibe code. Let me just show you also Telescopes Canada. So if you ever are there. So this little guy here, Cosmo, Matt and Steven, if you know Matt and Steven, they named Cosmo. But you know what this does? It's a customer service representative. So you can kind of go in and you can play with this, but you know, you can start the chat, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. AI understands context and it starts telling you and giving you examples. It doesn't conk out on you. So that's an example of, and then it'll give you some recommendations. So let me see if I can just say, I'm a beginner. Give me some telescope options.
That's right.
So it's very broad, right? So it's going to come up. Now there's training behind it. So Stephen, Matt, myself, and my colleague, we developed training behind it. It's called knowledge. And if you hear of things, so this is the knowledge. What we talked about is we looked at customer data. We looked at our own experiences and we said, actually, this is giving the right answer. This is exactly what we told it to do, is to say, okay, based on historical sales, we think these are the top 3 a beginner would like. So if there's a question like that, it's going to give. And you can kind of keep going. This is kind of cool. You know, it starts getting into, it'll also help you with order fulfillment and stuff like that. In full transparency, this is a third-party bot that we had to come in and implement. But the point here is that, you know, this is where the world is going in terms of customer service. And then there's... I think that's all I want to show you. That's all I want to show you, I think, for today, I believe, from a demo perspective. If you want any more demos, I can certainly talk to you. Let me just kind of go back here. Let me just down here. Okay, education resources. So these are all free. So if you're ever looking at dabbling a little bit, you can, Coursera is where I started my journey. They're mostly free. There's a lot of, you know, stuff that's out on the YouTube, etc. But you can always look at OpenAI Academy. This AI for everyone. Andrew Ng, he is very well known in the industry for, you know, for really great materials, and he's actually on Coursera. So if you're ever looking at that, and that's all I have for you today.